Good afternoon, patrons. This is Erick Mertz, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the inspiration for my story Hansel, my most recently released Patreon short story. The most important inspiration for this story is very personal. The John character depicted in the main story is based on someone that I knew, someone who recently passed away. The John that I knew was a solitary person. I think he lived in self-imposed exile for most of his adult life. Lived in the same place for, like 40 years. Worked at the same place for about the same amount of time. There's something just very intriguing to me about that. I've always been intrigued by lonely people, by solitary people. There's something intriguing to me about it. It sparks curiosity, and it never, I don't think it ever will stop being interesting to me. I wanted to dignify the real John by creating a story that I think is authentic to his life. Hopefully what happens in this story never happened to him, but I just wanted to create that sort of, just create a real depiction of what a solitary person's life might be like. Really, the bigger theme in this story is loneliness. If you've read it, the two characters, John and the main character in the framing story is a woman named Annika. They're both very lonely people. But what I wanted to create was this depiction of there's different kinds of loneliness. While John is in this self-imposed state of self-imposed exile, Annika is in a marriage, but she's entirely alone. Her husband is not a supporting partner. He's not a loving partner. And I think when you read the beginning, you'll capture that frustration, that sense that everything she does, she has to do by herself. That she just, again, doesn't have anyone she can rely on, especially in her marriage. And all those things are very real. And I wanted to link these lonely characters. And that's what the story's about. It's about the link between two lonely characters. Some other inspirations for me, I think, around loneliness and solitary characters in fiction, I think a lot of it comes back to, I used to love Simon and Garfunkel when I was a kid. I still do. But I like how the characters in Simon and Garfunkel songs are they're sort of these vignettes, these sketches of people in New York City. And I think Simon and Garfunkel definitely capture the loneliness of city life in a really honest way. And so I wanted to bring some of that in here, that sort of most peculiar man, that sort of, that evocative feeling of like what it's like to be just around and witnessing lonely people. Another inspiration for me why I think I've been captivated by loneliness, and this is kind of an odd one, I didn't even think of it until recently, but my father was a painter, and not many people know that. But my father had this painting club, at least early on when I was a kid, before I got into sports, and I kind of took up our weekends with soccer, or my sister had soccer. And, when I was really young, before I had a lot of activities, my dad we would drive around the Portland area, and we would pick up these people that were in my dad's painting club. And a lot of these guys they were just oddballs. I don't know what else to say. They were very odd guys. A lot of them lived alone. A lot of them lived with their mothers. And they were painters, but they just didn't have that social integration. They weren't married. They weren't, and it was just, I was just very captivated by that. I wondered what that life was like. I remember sitting in my car and listening to my dad talk to these guys and just wondering what it was so foreign to me, but it was so interesting. So John's not going to be the last lonely character that you get from me, but he's certainly one that I don't know if I'll create a more personal, I guess, character than John. So another thing that really moves me is missing persons posters. I take my dog for a walk a lot around the neighborhood. Wherever I am, when I see a missing person poster, I'm always drawn to it. I always read it, look at it, look at the person's picture, read the date when, I take all the information in. I think we know statistically that missing people are rarely found, and that's sad. So I get a lot of sadness when I see those posters. I also get a lot of hope And that's an odd contrast, I understand. But I think that a lot of, this is a person hoping. They're putting these posters up. They're tacking them up on telephone poles and in the library bulletin boards, hoping someone sees it. There's a lot of hope that this is the action that's going to reconnect them. And so in this story, there's a missing persons poster. It plays a role in John's story. And again, it's another thing I wanted to touch on, another thing that I find very moving and that I wanted to bring out in this story. I think the last thing I really want to say about Hansel, I hope you enjoyed it, is that, well, that's not the last thing. That's the most important thing. I hope you enjoyed it. But as far as my inspiration goes, the end of the framing story, the story is set in the frame of Annika finding John dead and then cleaning out his apartment. And then in the end, after we hear John's story, we find out what happens to her. I thought it was just really important to give Annika a happy ending. I'm not obsessed with happy endings. I actually think endings are the hardest thing to write. For me, they are, at least. But I knew that I wanted her to have a happy ending. I knew I wanted to dignify her experience by giving her that happy ending. And I hope that comes through. I hope when you read it, while John's ending, was fraught with a lot of the issues that he carried through life, I think it's an uplifting feeling to see Annika with a happy ending. But I don't know. What did you think? Did you like her ending? I hope you did. I hope you liked this story. I don't know what the next story is going to be. I've got about 6 of them written. They're on deck right now. So look forward to seeing another one in your mailbox soon. Thank you all for your patronage. Have a great day.